Again, I am Stuart Hawkins, and I just want to say first and foremost, I am a parent of a young adult with special challenges. My motivation and inspiration is my daughter Kelsey, who at 6 weeks old had her first surgery for hydrocephalus, which is fluid on the brain, and at 3 years old, she was actually diagnosed with a low-grade brain tumor on her brain stem. She's had 24 surgeries and a year and a half of chemotherapy. And as a result of that, she has a brain injury. So I've been through the school system, after school, the government benefits, employment, the full gamut. And so I not only have experienced firsthand, but I always say that I learn a lot from my clients. I also learn a tremendous amount by being on the board of Plan of Connecticut, which acts as a trustee for special needs trust. So I actually sit in a room and make decisions on how to spend money for folks out of their trusts. So I get a lot of knowledge from many places. So normally this would obviously be live, but in this virtual format, if you do have a question, if you could use the chat function, and Caitlin will, at times I will stop and ask if there are any questions. I will say, if you're asking a question that I'm going to cover in a slide forward, that I will address that. There will also be an opportunity at the end. We're going to send out an evaluation form, and there will be an opportunity for you to talk to me. So if you have any specific questions related to your personal situation, please know that I am available. So with that, I shall get started. You got to read all that real quick, because
Stuart, I don't think we see your presentation. We see the Zoom
really?
web page. Yeah.
Oh, where? Okay, why? Resume.
Yeah, your presentation was up when we first were looking. There you go. Yep.
There it is.
I got. Okay. Well, this is what I was talking while I was doing my whole introduction, so you didn't miss anything. So this is the one you have to really read really fast. Okay. I just have to have that up there. So on my licenses, I'm a financial advisor for 30 years and I do want to say this is intended for general education purposes, not meant to provide any specific recommendations or advice to anybody. Again, I can do that on a personal basis if you desire. So with that said, jumping right in, the big picture of government benefits. It's really broken down into two categories. Those are means tested, which means you have to have a financial need, and those that are non-means tested, those that are considered entitlements. So under the financial needs or means tested category, you have supplemental security income, SSI, Medicaid, SNAP benefits, food stamps, HUD housing. Those are all predicated on individuals having a financial need. And some of them, many of them have nothing specifically to do with having special needs. They're just for people who don't have a lot in the way of assets or income. Now on the non-means tested side, you have Social Security disability income, Medicare, ABLE accounts, and obviously IDEA, education. All of those have nothing to do with how much money the individual has in their name. Somebody who makes $1 million a year, if they got in a car accident and couldn't work anymore, they could collect Social Security disability because they paid into the system. Okay, many of the other things they would not be able to avail themselves of because they would have assets in their name. So what is Social Security's definition of disability? If you're under 18, it's a physical or mental impairment results in marked and severe functional limitations that's essentially supposed to last a lifetime. It's not It's not for a temporary thing. When you're over 18, the definition changes a little bit. It's really based about substantial gainful activity, having a physical or mental impairment that results in the inability to earn above the substantial gainful activity. And that number is $12.60 a month. So Social Security would say that if you earn more than $12.60 a month, then you're not really disabled. Blind individuals can earn $2,110. Now, SSI, many of us in this world get SSI, provides cash payment to meet basic food and shelter. That's a key term, food and shelter. Over 65, blind or disabled, with limited assets and income. That's the means tested portion of it. The maximum monthly benefit in 2020 is $783. Some people may receive a reduced amount because of what's called ISM, in-kind support and maintenance, and you're going to hear me say that a few times. I'm going to get into it in detail. Maximum countable resources that you can have in your name and get SSI, that's cash directly held in your name, is $2,000. So if you have more than $2,000, SSI would be affected. Now, what are resources as far as SSI is concerned? Anything, cash, bank account, stock, savings, bonds, anything that can be changed into cash and used again for food and shelter. Again, the key is food and shelter. Now, what does Social Security not count? You can actually own a house, you can own a car, all the household goods within your house or your apartment. Those are all okay. A computer, things like that. You're allowed to have all those. Anything that can be turned into food and shelter, cash to pay for food and shelter is what Social Security is concerned with. And then there's a bunch of other things. But the main thing, you can own a home and you could own a car. Now, what is income? Income, again, anything that can be used to meet food or shelter for the individual, or anything that can be converted for food and shelter. Now, what does Social Security not count? First $20 of any kind of income is excluded. They don't count that. And then the first $65, this is a month, by the way, first $65 of earned income. So if you work, the first $65 doesn't count, or essentially the first $85 does not count. In-kind support and maintenance, there's that word again, ISM, above the cap. What ISM is, and again, I'm going to talk about it more, is free or reduced cost of food or shelter. So essentially the first $85 is free and clear. After that, what gets reduced from an SSI payment? After the first $65 or $85, for every dollar that somebody earns, 50 cents is reduced off the Social Security benefit. Now, these can be reduced for impairment-related work expenses for somebody who's blind, or visually impaired, and they need special accommodations, a seeing eye dog, those kinds of things, those expenses can be reduced off for the payment. Another important one is student earned income exclusion. I've seen this several times where somebody who's still in a transition program at school and part of their schooling is job and they make a little bit of money, there should be no reduction as long as they don't make more than $1,900 a month, and most people aren't going to make that. So there should be no reduction in an SSI payment if the person is working as part of a school program. Here we are, the in-kind and in-kind support maintenance and the 1/3 reduction rule. If someone or something, as in a special needs trust, is helping to pay for, again, food or shelter, the SSI payment is reduced by 1/3. Okay. I'm going to say that again because this is very important. If someone or something is paying for food and shelter, the Social Security benefit is reduced by 1/3. Now, this can get a little bit confusing if the person is working because it's hard to remember where you started. But if you didn't start up in the 700s, you have an issue if your child is living at home with you. What Social Security says right there, you're not living in another person's household. You live in your own household if you are liable to the landlord for payment of any part of the rental charges, or you pay at least a prorated share of your household expenses. That last one is what Social Security really wants to use. You pay at least a prorated share of household expenses. So what they do is they look at how many people live in the house, and they divide it by that number, and they determine, well, this individual cannot pay their fair share, so therefore you as their parents are supporting them. And because you're supporting them, we don't have to do as much. So we reduce by 1/3 your payment. Now, what they're not going to tell you is if you turn around and you charge a fair market rate for rent, just like you could any other 18-year-old, you can't do this before they're 18, any other 18-year-old, then there should not be that reduction. And the key is a fair market rate. If Social Security asked you, is that what you would charge somebody else? The answer should be yes. That is what the fair market rate to rent a room in my area. So that could be $400 or $500 because you're charging them room and board, rent, expense reimbursement, whatever we want to call it. They are paying their share. The other way around that is to pay out of an ABLE account. And I'm going to go in specifically what an ABLE account is in a few slides, but it's relatively new and it is clearly stated that paying for room and food and shelter out of an ABLE account does not start that 1/3 reduction. So Caitlin, are there any questions that I should address?
There's one. My daughter has been working 8 hours a week and her SSI has been reduced. Should it count against her SSI? This is from Celine.
Celine, yes, the 50 cents for every, after the first $85, for every dollar she earns, 50 cents will come off her SSI payment. There's nothing you can do about that. That's normal. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. So when do we apply? We apply at age 18. This is another thing that I want to really, really stress for those who their child is not 18 yet or is over 18. I too often find that people wait, and it's costing money to wait. I run into people that for 2 years, they just haven't gotten around to applying. And that's thousands and thousands of dollars of benefits that could be supporting your child. So you want to apply at age 18. It may take 5 months, 6 months, 7, 8 months, a year sometimes depending on the situation, to get approved, but they pay back to the first of the month following the month in which you actually applied. So your loved one will get a couple of bigger checks for the back payments. So you absolutely want to apply at age 18 because they no longer look at the parents' resources. I know it's hard to fathom, but our children at age 18 are legal adults and we no longer have any financial responsibility for them. We could say, bye-bye, you're out of the house, just like any typical child. And the Department of Children and Family Services cannot come to your house and say, no, 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 no. None of us are ever going to do that, but that's the way you have to view it. They are legal adults at age 18 and they stand on their own. So can't have more than $2,000 in their name, and savings bonds count. That's a big one. People forget about savings bonds in their names. 529 plans are okay because usually parents or grandparents own them. And now, as of a few years ago, you can actually move money from a 529 to an ABLE account. ABLE accounts, again, I'm going to get into in a future slide. How do we apply? Usually I would say you can apply in person or online. It's pretty much online now. And when we do this and we're applying, we have to step back as parents. I know we are our kids' biggest fans and we want to promote how good they are and how capable they are. But what we need to do when we're applying for Social Security is step back and say, if I wasn't here today, what would their life be like? So a question as simple as, do they need assistance with dressing? And you might say, no, they put their clothes on. Well, do you ever have to prompt them that it's cold out and they need to wear their coat? The answer is yes, then they need assistance with dressing. Do they need assistance with bathing? Well, no, they go take a shower. I can do that. Do you ever have to tell them your hair is greasy, you need to take a shower? Well, yes. You need to brush your teeth. Then the answer is yes, they need assistance. So we don't need to take it so literally that you actually have to brush their teeth or bathe them. If it's that prompting is required, then you're being truthful but realistic. And you want to detail worst case scenario, a worst day scenario, I should say. Any questions?
Yes, there's two. So the first one is, if we remove money from our son's SSI to cover food expense, should we be notifying SSI that is what the money is used for?
That's what it's supposed to be used for. So I'm not sure what the question means when we remove money. Remember, you can't accumulate that money in their name. So that money does have to be spent. You can't just keep accumulating the SSI payment in a bank account in their name. That is their money. It has to come out. That is one of the reasons that having a room and board agreement or charging your child rent makes it very easy for you as a parent to account for how you are spending your child's money. It's a line item, say I'm charging, and they're paying $400, $500, whatever that number is for room and board, and then the extra, because you do have to account where that money is going. The other question?
How does this apply if you're the child's legal guardian, age over 18? So if they're over the age of 18.
Help me out with how does this apply?
Delphia, I think, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, did you want to go off mute and ask your question?
Yes, I was asking it with regards to the SSI benefits. How does that apply? Because you said you could apply if the kid is 18 or older, but how does that work if they're 18, but you're the legal guardian?
No change, whether you're a legal guardian or
Okay.
not.
Okay, so if the kid already has it before 18, it continues and it just continues as is, dependent on work and
I
so
do
on.
not believe it continues as is. I believe you have to do something with Social Security. If your child is receiving SSI based on your income and assets, when they turn 18, they are now legal adults. So it's different.
Even if you have legal guardianship of them?
Yes, because that's a process that you have to go through at age 18 is filing for guardianship.
Yes.
So yes, there is something that you have to do there. You need to talk to Social Security about that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So Medicaid, what is Medicaid? Medicaid provides medical benefits. It's a means tested, jointly funded state and federal dollars. Provides medical insurance for low income families and children and individuals with disabilities. There's Husky A, B, C, and D. I'm going to say this again, but Husky C is the gateway to Medicaid benefits for individuals with disabilities. It also provides nursing home care for older folks, and the same rules apply. It's not that the Medicaid system is discriminating against our kids with special needs. It is the same rules for somebody who's elderly that needs to go into a nursing home. You can only have $1,600 for Medicaid. So $1,600, even though I mentioned $2,000 for SSI before, in Connecticut, $1,600 is the number to keep in mind. Okay. I like to say this is a means tested entitlement. If you meet the eligibility requirements, there is no waiting list. So somebody who needs to go into a nursing home, there's not a waiting list for somebody as long as their assets are down to $1,600. There is no waiting list for Husky Health. If you meet the requirements, you're eligible for the program. Now, Medicaid waivers, okay. So Medicaid is, again, a federal and state program, and they have rules. What a Medicaid waiver is the state Medicaid system is applying to the federal government to waive the rules of the Medicaid system to provide services to a select group of folks. These are home and community-based services, HCBS. And the state can target a group and cap the total number of people. You can have waiting lists for Medicaid waivers. Okay. Unlike the nursing home, where again, it's a means tested entitlement, there's no waiting list. Here you can have waiting lists. And the different waivers, DDS, Department of Developmental Services. That's a comprehensive waiver. That's a waiver that would provide somebody full supports from a group home, for example. Individual and family support waiver. That's where services might be coming into the home for part of the day. Employment and day support waivers. That's where job coaching comes from. So within the DDS system, as you age out of school, you go through the level of need process, and that determines what budget the individual is going to get. And that budget is specific to that individual, and that individual can go to different service providers and competitively say, what can you do for my child based on their level of need and the budget that's been given to them. Department of Social Services waivers, that's Connect Home Care for the Elders. That's where people want to stay at home instead of going into a nursing home. Katie Beckett waiver is for people with high medical expenses when their child is under age 18. They don't look at the parent's assets or income, they look at the child's. PCA, that may be for somebody who was in a car accident, needs a personal care attendant. ABI, acquired brain injury, that's actually where my daughter receives services from because she has a acquired brain injury. And the autism waiver, that used to be under DDS, they moved it to DSS. That again has a big waiting list, and it was a pilot program. So I don't know how many people are on that, but it's not fully funded by any stretch. DEMIS waivers, Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. And the last one, it's not officially a waiver, but I'm going to put it here anyway. It's called the SO5 Med Connect. This is Medicaid for the working disabled. Some folks can earn a lot more and have more assets. They can actually have $10,000 of assets and $75,000 of income and still collect Medicaid services. The reason being, again, these services aren't just for our population. It could be somebody who was in a car accident, they were 45 years old, can't do what they were doing before. They want to go back to work. The government wants to promote people to go back to work. So they're afraid they're going to lose their Medicaid benefits if they go back to work. This allows them to keep them and show that they can go back to work. Any questions, Caitlin?
No.
Okay. SNAP benefits, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Plan. That essentially, that's the old food stamps. These are federal dollars overseen by the Department of Agriculture, designed to help low-income families buy food. You get an EBT card, the gray card, it's called the Connect card, and the maximum monthly benefit for an individual with no income is $194 a month. Now, if your child's under 22 and living with you, food stamp SNAP considers you all part of a household. So you're not going to be eligible. They're going to look at everybody's income to determine the eligibility. Somebody who's over 22 living in your house, i.e. your child, could be eligible for food stamps. The key here, though, is this money for this food is supposed to be segregated from everybody else's food, and we don't eat all the same food. The food is on a separate shelf in the refrigerator. These are some of the things that you have to kind of agree to the fact pattern here, so to speak. Wink, wink, nod, nod. It's their food. We're not sharing the food. So very important there, because in that application process, they will ask that question of the individual. They will actually call the individual who's benefiting from this. So there may be a little coaching that needs to happen there. And how do we apply? We can go 211CT. There is a little exercise that you can put in income and go through the process and determine if the individual is eligible. Section 8, housing, very complicated. And again, this is not specific to our population. This is anybody who is low income. So it essentially provides low income housing to low income individuals and the disabled. And there's really basically two types. There's tenant-based and then there's project-based. Project-based is where you see an apartment complex where they break off. It may be a new complex, and you'll see people in the newspaper that 4 of the units for low income housing. Those are federal tax credits that the developer is getting. That's the reason they're doing this. It's not necessarily out of the goodness of their heart, even though sometimes it is. It's just they get incentives to create low income housing. It could be an entire housing complex that is low income. It could be a senior housing complex. Wherever it says housing for seniors, that also includes individuals with disabilities. So the key there is it's project-based. Now, the other side of the coin is what's called tenant-based. That's the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And the difference there is you get the voucher, I call that the golden ticket. You can take that anywhere and apply that, and you end up paying 1/3 of your income towards your rent. So if you decide you don't like where you're living, you can take your voucher and move somewhere else. Whereas in a project-based housing, Section 8, it is associated with that housing complex. If you leave there, you're not necessarily getting the below market rent. Now, there are very long waiting lists for Section 8 housing. What you want to do is register cthcvp.org, and you'll get email notifications when waiting lists open up. When you see those, you have to click on them and look at what it is. If it is a project-based housing, and this is a real example, Charter Oak Housing in New Haven, they're opening up their waiting list for this project for housing there. Well, if you live in the Hartford area and you wouldn't consider your loved one living all the way in New Haven, you're not going to consider that. But you could see something that comes across that New London has opened their Housing Choice Voucher waiting list. Remember, the Housing Choice Voucher waiting, you do not have to go to New London. You don't have to live in New London. You can take that with you. So if you live in Wallingford, you could apply for the Housing Choice Voucher Program in London, get on the waiting list, and if you're a lucky one chosen, you could use that to live in Wallingford. Okay? Any questions, Caitlin?
Yeah, one question came through about SNAP. Angie says she tried to apply for this but got denied because they said she made too much. Is that possible?
Who made too much?
That Angie made too much.
How old is the individual?
I'm 40.
For you, Angie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you make too much money, then you do not receive it. That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, Lifeline, otherwise known, more commonly known as the Obama phone. Now, if we were live, I would query the crowd as to what president instituted the Lifeline program. Essentially, what Lifeline is anybody can have a phone, regardless of their income. Mike, you want to guess? Which president started Lifeline?
Call it the Obama phone, but I'm thinking the
Trick
legislation,
question, Mike.
legislation was, it happened before that under Bush.
Close. Well, I don't know which Bush you're referring to, but
George W.
Reagan
Oh,
started.
wow.
He felt that anybody should be able to have a phone and call 911 regardless of their status in life. So if you look at your phone bill, you'll see a little line item at the bottom, maybe $1, $1.50, could be universal connectivity charge. That's what funds this. It's called the Obama phone because Obama expanded it to smartphone technology. So prior to that, it was just pretty much landlines. So as landlines went by the wayside, Obama said, well, everybody. So it's a free phone, smartphone with limited minutes, unlimited text, limited data. All you need is proof of government benefits, whether it's SSI, SSDI, Medicaid, SNAP, and you're eligible. You can add minutes and data for additional fees, and you can switch your phone. So if you have an Apple phone, as long as it works on the Sprint network, you can also keep your existing phone number. Okay, so those Access Wireless, Assurance Wireless, SafeLink Wireless, those are different carriers that provide this service.
I think it might be, I don't think, because President Senior goes back, so it should be his son, because President Bush Jr. actually, because the father goes way back. Is that correct?
Yep. Before that was President Reagan, and Father Bush was the vice president under Reagan.
Right.
Right. So we'll keep going now. Social Security, Social Security disability income. This is non-means tested. This is an entitlement. Anybody who worked, paid into the system, and then cannot work or is disabled, I'm going to get into that, would be eligible for Social Security disability income. It's based on your own work record, the FICA taxes that you paid, and you need 40 qualified quarters. Individuals deemed disabled that are younger than 30 need fewer quarters. You can have concurrent benefits. You can have both SSI and SSDI, and many folks in our world will have that at some point. My daughter was receiving SSI. Her income was reduced. For every dollar she earned, 50 cents came off after the first $85. After a little while, several years, because she was working part-time, it starts morphing where she's getting both SSI and SSDI. And then after a while, then it's 100% SSDI. And that is a good thing. After 24 months of your first check with SSDI, then you are Medicare eligible. And very importantly, unlike the SSI benefit, it is not reduced by the money that you make as long as you stay below the SGA amount of 1260. So that 1260 number is very important. We want to monitor that as parents or guardians. You don't want your loved one making $1,300, $1,400 a year for one very important reason that I'm going to get to probably next slide. This one. Childhood disability benefits, or formerly known as a DAC, disabled adult child. Individual must have been continuously disabled prior to age 22. So that's most of our population that we're talking about here. Somebody who at 30 was in a car accident and became disabled is not eligible for this. Somebody who has a mental health issue that developed when they were in their late 20s is not eligible for this. Once a parent retires, becomes disabled, or passes away, we collect 50% of the primary insurance amount, that's the full retirement age amount of our parent. When that parent passes away, receives 75% of what the parent was getting, their full retirement amount. This is very important. That's why you don't want to just make above that substantial gainful activity amount. Now, I would not discourage anybody if they could make enough money to be self-supportive, but you just don't want them making just above that amount so that they lose this benefit, because this can be a huge benefit throughout their life. So the benefit is not reduced if the parent collects early, but it's also not increased if they delayed. So if a parent takes their Social Security at 62, the child will get 50% of what they would have gotten at their normal retirement age, whether that's 66 or 67 now. This is a huge benefit. Any questions, Caitlin?
No questions at this time.
Okay, Medicare. Again, non-means tested. You're eligible if you've worked 40 quarters and are 65 or older, or after receiving Social Security disability for 24 months. And we just talked about that. Or child disability benefits, again, after 24 months. You got essentially 4 different parts, or 3 parts in a different, Part A covers hospitals. Part B covers doctors. Part A and B both have deductibles and cost sharing, and many people get a Medicare supplement. Part C is what's called a Medicare Advantage. That's where you are going to an insurance company and you're saying, here, you take care of everything, and they wrap it all together, the Part A and Part B. And then Part D is prescriptions. Now, if you are Medicare and Medicaid qualified, Medicaid pays Part B. So that would be Husky C, Medicaid, health insurance. And then you're now on Social Security disability, either because you've worked enough quarters, 24 months, or because you've been disabled prior to age 22 continuously, and your parent retires, then you're duly eligible, and the Part B premiums are covered. So that, oh, I didn't say that. Part B, there is a premium for just anybody who's over 65, they are paying a premium for that. And then there's a Medicare savings program that pays deductibles and prescription drugs. So somebody who's duly eligible for Medicare and Medicaid is very well covered. And that is where my daughter is, and she has high health care needs. And I can tell you, we've never had an issue with this. The Connecticut Department of Aging and Disability Services. This used to be called DOORS, Department of Rehabilitative Services. They changed their name to Department of Aging and Disability Services. And I've been told that they don't want to be referred to as DADS, D-A-D-S. It's the Department of Aging and Disability Services. And under there, there's Bureau of Rehabilitative Services. Now, most people, I think all people now aging out of school have to go through this process. It's part of the whole lawn score and everything, determining your eligibility to work. But other than that, even somebody who was disabled at 40 years old could go to BRS and say, well, I can't do this. I can't be a truck driver anymore. What else can I do? And they can do short-term job evaluation training. And my daughter's gone through this twice, and actually through that process, got a job as a cashier at Walgreens through this process. So for some people, it works great. For other people, depending on their level of need, I've heard that it doesn't. So, any questions, Caitlin?
Yes, one came through, and I believe it's for the SSDI. Once a parent passes away and the other parent becomes the primary guardian, the child will still receive 75%?
Of the deceased parent's Social Security, yes. Or whoever's higher. If the surviving parent is retired and their benefit is higher than the deceased parent, then it's probably pretty unlikely because it's 75% of the deceased parent versus 50% of the living parent. So, but regardless, the point being, whoever has the higher amount. So if both parents are alive, one parent could retire and the child could receive 50%. And then the next parent could retire and maybe their Social Security is higher than the original parent, then it would switch to the higher amount. Community first choice. This is Medicaid under Obamacare. It's not been around that long. Can provide assistance with preparing meals, chores, assistance with activities of daily living, doctor's appointments, errands. Originally, it was open to more folks. What I'm told now is you need to have the need for hands-on assistance, most likely before you're going to be eligible for this now. In other words, if the individual needs somebody to bathe them or to be there for toileting or physically needs to be dressed, if not, just that standby or that prompting is not enough to qualify for this anymore. This is self-directed. The individual themselves are the employer and have to hire the support services. You cannot hire an agency to do this. So it does put the onus on the parents to do this. Now you can hire a family member. They just cannot be the guardian and conservator. So I know people who mom is being paid to do these services for the child, dad's the guardian. But if mom were the guardian, that wouldn't work. So this is an entitlement because it is under Obamacare. And this is actually what the people at Community First Choice told me. There is no waiting list. They just have a very long processing time. So essentially there is a long waiting list because of the processing time. So if you think your child might be eligible, you can just go 211, just Google 211 and the information is there. Any questions, Caitlin?
No, there are no questions.
Beautiful. ABLE, achieving a better life experience. This is relatively new, about 4 years old now, just over 4 years old. These plans are established by states, but you do not have to use your state's plan. And that is a good thing because Connecticut does not have one. But I'm going to say it again because I've heard it too many times. People tell me, well, they're waiting for Connecticut to have one or Connecticut doesn't have a plan. You do not need to use your own state's plan. There are plenty of states that allow outside individuals to use their plan. This is essentially, if you're familiar with a 529 college savings plan, it's actually 529A of the IRS code. It allows people to save up to $15,000 a year So negating all that 2,000, that 1,600, if the money goes into an ABLE account, you can put actually $15,000 a year. And you could even put more if the individual works and is not eligible for a retirement plan. These are tax favored accounts. The money grows tax deferred and the money comes out tax free. As long as it's used for disability related expenses, which is pretty much all encompassing. Some people question, well, can it be used for a vacation? Well, there is a line in that says that anything to promote the health and welfare of the individual. And I could make the argument that a trip to Disney World is promoting the health and welfare of the individual. You must be federally disabled, SSI, SSDI, or a parent or guardian must certify that the individual would meet that definition. You don't, by saying that a doctor would certify, you do not have to provide proof when you apply. So most folks that have an intellectual disability are going to be eligible for this. Once the account reaches $100,000, Social Security is suspended. You can move money, I mentioned this before, you can move money from a 529 college savings plan into one of these. So if we were saving money from the age, young age for an individual, and it's decided that they're not going to go on in schooling, we can move that money now, still limited to the $15,000 per year, into an ABLE account and use that for, could use it for education expenses, could use it for housing expenses, medical expenses, transportation expenses, anything like that. My daughter has one of these and she has a debit card. She can use it to go to a coffee shop. She can use it to go get whatever she needs. And we get a report at the end of the year where that money is spent. The only downside to one of these is that upon the death of the beneficiary, if the child or the individual has received Medicaid services, the state is first in line to get paid back. So this is not something that I personally throw all my money into. This is a great thing for smaller amounts of money. Kelsey's, my daughter Kelsey's money when she was working, that would, her above and beyond would go in there. When I set this up for her way back when, she was working maybe 15 plus hours, and I would come home and I'd see uncashed paychecks and cash on the counter. And I asked her, Kelsey, why is this? She says, well, Dad, I have too much money in my bank account. I said, I know what we're going to do. We're going to take $100 a month and we're going to put it into one of these accounts. And it's worked beautiful for her. A year later, she needed a new computer. That's where we went and got the money out of her ABLE account. I could go on and on about ABLE. I have an actually have a whole presentation on this, but Caitlin, are there any questions on that?
There is one question. Can you move funds from a UTMA into an ABLE account?
Yes, and that is what you would need to do, but you would need to liquidate the UTMA in order to move it in there. So in other words, you have a UTMA account and it's invested in a mutual fund. You would have to sell the mutual fund and then take the cash and move it into the ABLE account. But that is what folks who may have that for the benefit of other folks, the Unified Transfer to Minors Act. That's an account that does have some tax favored status. It's taxed at the child's rate versus the parent's rate. But that counts in the state of Connecticut. That would count when they turn 21 because that is the age of majority in Connecticut for that account. So in applying for Social Security, you would have to declare that money in that account, just like you would a savings bond. And savings bonds and UTMA accounts should be transferred into an ABLE account because it only makes sense to do that. Now, one thing I do want to mention here with the ABLE account, you can pay for a funeral out of this account after the individual passes away. So my recommendation is don't put more than you would pay for a funeral in here. This is not a place where I feel, my personal opinion, that parents should be putting money over and over again. There are many better places. Put it in the special needs trust, which I'm going to talk about very briefly in a second. And any questions, Caitlin, because I'm moving to the end here.
That is all.
Okay, this is the last slide. So wrapping up, special needs planning is very complicated. Government benefits are all complicated. And when we think about it, when we have a loved one with special needs, we're actually planning for two generations. We're planning for ours as the parents and our loved one. Most typical families are going to do legal work that leaves, if I have 2 kids, I'm going to leave money equally to both kids. And the question could be, well, how much is that? Well, I don't know. I hope to spend it all. You hear the bumper sticker, I'm spending my kids' inheritance. Or you hear kids say, Mom, Dad, go on a trip. I don't want your money. When we have a child with special needs, it kind of changes that perspective. We know in the end, we want money left over. So in the planning that we do, the financial planning, the legal planning, it's important that we look at all this stuff, both financially and the legal side of things. It's very important that we have a special needs trust set up for our loved ones. That allows us to leave money to our child with special needs, and it's protected. The government can't look at it and say, well, you just left $100,000 to that individual who's receiving government benefits, so you don't qualify anymore. It is not their money, it's your money that you left in trust for their benefit to supplement, not supplant any government benefits they get. Now, when our child passes away, because it was our money that we left for their benefit in this trust, we get to name where that money goes, any remaining money goes when our child passes away. So it could go to their siblings. It could go, actually, it could go back to Special Olympics. Mike pays me to say that. No, seriously, it could go to a charity like Special Olympics rather than it going back to the government. If you do the thoughtful planning ahead of time and coordinate all the legal and the financial, as well as the government benefits, maximizing the government benefits that your loved one is eligible for. But it's important to do this planning because it is different. It's very much different, and it's very important to work with attorneys that know what they're doing in this area, and it's important to work with a financial advisor that knows what they're doing in this area, because before I got into this, before I had Kelsey, I wouldn't have known the nuances of not leaving money directly to a loved one with special needs and what that could do affecting government benefits. So normally I'm here to help. Normally there would be an evaluation form if we were live. I would hand out and you'd fill it out and tell me what a great job I did and all of that. I'm just kidding. But what we're going to do is we're going to email out, my wife who works with me is going to email out this form for you. Please let me know how I did. If there's anything that we can help you with, let us know. And I'm here to help. I can do a Zoom meeting with you. I do not charge consultation fees to meet with you either in person or via a Zoom meeting. So please take advantage of that. And with that, Caitlin, any other questions?
Yeah, one question just came through about where and how do you start an ABLE account?
Oh, that's a very good question. Online, it's all done online. There is no brick and mortar place that you could go to. I had one client who told me that she was waiting till she could go to the bank, till Connecticut has it, so she could go to her local bank and open one. Even if Connecticut had one, you could not go to your local bank and open one. It's all going to be done online. So the two states that I personally recommend are Ohio. They are the biggest and the first. And many other states use Ohio's system. And the other one is Massachusetts. Where I would use Ohio, that's where my daughter's is. If you're going to have more than, say, $1,000 or $2,000 in there, I'm going to Ohio. Their investment expenses are very, very low using Vanguard. However, with that said, they have a $35 a year fee. So if you're only going to put $100 in or $200, $35 is a lot of money that's coming out.
I have a question. Special needs are paying state of Vermont. Is that different than here, like in Connecticut?
Angie, there could be different rules specifically in Vermont, but many of them will cross over in terms of not having money in your name, and the Section 8 housing is going to be similar. The SNAP benefits, food stamps is going to be similar. SSI and SSDI is going to be the same because that's a federal program. But Medicaid could be a little different because that's a joint state and federal program. So, but anyway, Fidelity in Massachusetts does not have that $35 fee, but their investment expenses are much higher. They use Fidelity. They're much higher. That's how they make up for the fact that they don't have the $35 a year fee. So it depends on how much money ultimately will be there. There's a break-even point between the two programs. So with that, if there's any other questions.
George, just a quick question. Connecticut's ABLE account, there's not one, but I know several years ago, we supported Christy Carpino in the legislature to enable this to happen. Is this just dead? Like, was it never brought forward or was it voted down?
No. It is authorized. So you did a good job there, Mike. It has been authorized. So the legislature has authorized the establishment of an ABLE account. And I think we're really close to joining with Oregon and their program. And at the last minute, whoever our controller is, Napier, Denise, said we need to do due diligence on them. And we are not, I can tell you this, in Connecticut, going to establish our own. We would jump on with somebody else and just brand it as Connecticut. And I don't know where we are with that. And it really is a non-issue because there is going to be no advantage to using yours. It's just like a 529 plan. You can use other states. I mean, Connecticut has their own CHET plan, but many people don't use it. The only advantage of CHET is you do get a state income tax deduction, but who knows if the state would build that into an ABLE account here. And even if they don't, Mike, what you can do is set up a 529 college savings plan, get your deduction, and then just move it to an ABLE account. So little nuances of this planning. But yeah, it is, there's enacting legislation that was passed, so, but no money to fund the department to research and set this up.
Okay.
Because there's money involved. I mean, really, I mean, think about it. The branding and everything, you know, the website, that would essentially just tie into somebody else's website. So with our budget woes, I'd rather see it going to other things than establishing a Connecticut ABLE account.
I have a question about the monthly income limit. Is it month by month, or is it like an average from the year? Like suppose there was a big bonus in 1 month, which brought him over the limit, but an annual income, it was still okay?
There, if you keep repeating having those big months, it could be a problem. There's what's called a trial work period. I think you have 8 months where you can earn way more than that. So the answer is it is more of an average, but if you continuously, like maybe holiday time, they work extra hours or.
My daughter works for the state of Connecticut, and I believe it was last year, they had like one lump bonus instead of annual raises. And,
Yeah, that probably won't affect it.
yeah, because it was like a huge amount. Like, I haven't heard anything, so I'm assuming that that was okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have one question. I put it in the chat box, but I don't think they got to it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to know, would we be getting a copy of this PowerPoint presentation or anything? Because it's a lot of information. And I have 2 kids with special needs, and I just feel so overwhelmed with all of this information.
Yep, we can send that out to you.
Okay. And I guess there will be contact information if I need help trying to sort stuff out, right? Like
Yeah, as I
overwhelming.
said, my wife is going to be sending out an evaluation form, and you can just put on there, I'd like the PowerPoint.
Okay. And it was an eye opener for me.
Cool.
Because my older one will be 18 next year, and I'm seeing all of this. I really need to start scrambling. So thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I've recorded this tonight, so I can also send the copy of the recording tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Of course. And then there was one more question just about any chance we could get the name/sites for the both ABLE accounts being mentioned? Can Janet put that in the email?
If you just do a Google search for Ohio, just put in Ohio ABLE. They call their program Stable, S-T-A-B-L-E. And it's likely if you just type into the search bar ABLE Fidelity ad, a Fidelity ad is going to pop up. So if you just put in ABLE Massachusetts, it's going to take you right there. If you put in ABLE Ohio, it will take you right there.
Talking about ABLE, do you do like ABLE Vermont, or the different actually?
I don't know if Vermont has a program. I doubt they have their own. They would have joined with another state. So I don't know the specifics of Vermont.
Well, Stuart, I think that's it for questions in the chat. I thank you for your time and providing this information. And everyone else, I thank you for joining us on our Tuesday nights. Please be on the lookout for our more information on our Family Health Forum series. And I hope to see you all at future webinars.
Beautiful. Thank you for your
Thanks
time.
again, Stuart. Have a good night,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.